Hi, my name is Kalyan, and I'm a member of Active Aeroelasticity Structures Research Lab in the Department of Aerospace Engineering at the University of Michigan. Today, I would like to talk about health monitoring of engineering structures. Engineering structures correspond to most of the man made materials, such as bridges, buildings, railways, ships, and even aircrafts. And the term health corresponds to the similarities between engineering structures and living beings. Like living beings, they go through birth, life, and death, and my research corresponds to the life aspect. Before I go into the details, I would like to talk a little bit about the motivation. Science fiction movies have always fascinated me, but growing up, I realized that most of the things in the movies are far fetched, but some of them seem plausible. One of them has to do with the screen staring. While seeing the science fiction movies, we've always seen cast members staring into the screens and giving out a real time information about the ship. So it gives us the impression that the spaceship that they're in is smart in a sense that it's able to detect what's wrong with itself, and it's able to give a feedback and an estimation about what needs to be done in order to correct that. So, how do we come up with this so called smart structure? For that, we need to look at the smart structure that we know in the nature. So, one of the clear example is the human body. With the help of the central nervous system that we have, we are able to detect if there is something wrong with our body in terms of pain or fever or any other symptoms. So we would like to incorporate uh, this specialty into aircrafts so that they will be able to detect if they have something wrong or if they have a damage within themselves, so that we can come up with this smart structure which is able to sense and also predict the extent of damage and what needs to be done in order to correct the damage. At this point, the logical question is, why are we doing this? Is there a need uh, to come up with the smart structures? Because we don't see engineering structures fail every day. And the reason for that is we go through extensive maintenance programs. For example, in the aircrafts, they have to go through 4 levels of maintenance checks, which actually leads to a lot of money spent on it and also a lot of time wasted doing maintenance. And as they grow old, they actually need more maintenance similar to human body. And in specific cases, such as military operations, this could actually lead to a failure of mission. So the idea is to move from a timely maintenance as we do with our car that we take to a mechanic every 5,000 or 7,000 miles to move towards a system close to the human maintenance where we go to a doctor if we find something wrong with our body. So how do we make this transition from a car type of maintenance to a human kind of a maintenance? For that, we would first require a very good sensing system, which will be able to determine if there is something wrong in terms of a damage or injury. And depending on the severity of this damage, we can try to take the necessary corrective action. So for this scheme to work, the main important thing is to have a really good sensing system. In my research, I try to use ultrasonic waves in order to come up with this sensing system. As the name suggests, the waves correspond are similar to the waves on top of a pond when we drop a stone in it. And the sonic represents the audible sound that we hear from the speakers. And the ultrasonic waves are really common to our day-to-day lives. We use that for most of the medical purposes, as seen here in the case of a pregnant woman. It can be used to see the well-being of the unborn child. So now the really good question would be, is that why do we need to spend research time and effort in order to come up with an ultrasonic testing method for engineering structures? Because we already have that in the medical field. The difference is that we can't have someone take a probe and go all over the huge aircraft. So we need a permanent system on top of the aircraft. And that since we need to cover the entire aircraft, we need to actually have a network of these sensors and ultrasonic waves. And considering that the new engineering structures such as the Boeing 787 Dreamliner actually has a lot of different materials, we need to have a good understanding as to how the waves interact with these different materials. And aeroplanes, like other structures, have different types and different stages of damages. And we need to have a really good understanding of these interactions with the waves in order to come up with a smart structure. So this brings us to the specific work which I do. So take, for example, a plate which is representative of a wing panel in an airplane. And if I want to find if there is any damage within my plate, first I would need to generate the waves. So have this specialized instruments which generate the waves. And they are represented here with the orange dot. And when the waves are propagating, they move away from the source. And if there is a damage present within my plate, the waves will bounce off the damage and they will be picked up by the sensor. So my work is to try to write a software program or a computer program in order to capture all the different phases of wave generation, propagation, damage interaction, and the sensor response. Once if I come up with this software, the engineers can use this software in order to determine if there is any damage within the structure. And it will also help them in order to place this wave generation sources and also the sensors optimally on an aircraft or other structures. Next, I would like to show you a sample result. What I have here are two plates. One of them is not damaged and the other one is damaged. The damage is shown with the help of a black square. And we have the source as the orange dot as told before. And the sensor is in the form of a ring around the source. So when we try to generate the waves, in the non-damaged case, we see that the waves are propagating out in the outward direction and they hit the boundary and they're reflected back. And in the case where we have a damage, we see that the outward propagating waves actually hit the damage and a portion of the waves actually bounces back. And the reflected waves are picked up by the sensors. And by comparing the difference between the non-damaged case and the damaged case, we'll be able to predict the presence and the severity of a damage. This is really critical because it gives us an idea as to how to come up with the smart structure which will be able to detect if there is a presence of damage. And this is really critical in order to come up with a next generation sensing system in all of our engineering structures. And this would help us move from a science fiction to a science reality. Thank you very much.